Oh, wait. All right, I think we're good now. Hey guys, I'm Kim with Mid-Level Media and welcome back for another slasher series review, and today we are covering 1981's Friday the 13th Part 2, directed by Steve Miner. I'm super excited to get into this one today, but before I do, I want to ask, this is the 7th Friday the 13th film that I have reviewed on this channel. I made it my mission as soon as I got that Scream Factory box set. I said I'm going to review every single Friday the 13th film on this channel, and I definitely appreciate everybody that's been supporting these videos, been supporting these reviews, leaving me comments down below. But if you're watching these reviews, if you're enjoying these reviews, please drop me a like and drop me a comment down below letting me know just your thoughts on the films in general, your thoughts on my review. Give me some critiques here and there because I'm kind of new to the video review format. I don't do a whole lot of them, but I do really love going back and looking at these older, like classic slasher films, in particular horror movies, and just kind of putting my stamp on them and telling you all how I feel about them, and doing it in this new slasher series review format. So if you're not familiar with this new format that I do, I now have a playlist on my channel which you can go back and check out all of my slasher reviews of all the previous Friday the 13th films. I've done Jason X, I've done the first one, I've done Jason Takes Manhattan, I did the entire Tommy Jarvis trilogy, and now I'm continuing with Part 2, so definitely go back and check those out. So basically I'm rating these on their kills, the gores, the killer, and the final girl. I'm rating them on all that criteria. That's my slasher review criteria. But I'm also going to give you my thoughts on the film in general. I'm going to give you some fun facts, some things about the movie, because like I said, this movie came out in 1981. It was directed by Steve Miner, who was a very prolific director in the 80s and 90s. He made movies like House, like Warlock, like Halloween H2O. He made Part 3 of the Friday the 13th franchise, actually. So we'll talk about him again next week when we do the next review. Lake Placid, he did Big Bully with Rick Moranis and Tom Arnold. Like, he's done so many different movies. While We're Young with Mel Gibson, My Father the Hero. This guy has done a lot of movies. He's directed a lot of films. And this is his first film that he ever directed. In my opinion, he made one of the best Friday the 13th films. And this one is also starring Amy Steele, John Fury, and it takes place 5 years after the events of the first film. It only takes place 1 year after the film was actually released, but in the movie storyline, it is 5 years later. So Jason's mother, Mrs. Voorhees, has been dead for 5 years. Camp Crystal Lake is shut down, and there's a new group of teens that comes in to set up camp next door, basically another camp next to Camp Crystal Lake. Everybody warns them against it. They say it's cursed or whatever, but they're coming in to set up a new camp, and then they're suddenly stalked by another killer who, it's not really revealed. Everybody knows it's Jason at this point. This is the first film that Jason makes his appearance in, but it's not revealed that it's Jason at first. And one of the things that kind of hit me that I didn't really remember about this movie is that Jason, you don't see Jason a lot in it. It's very much like the first one in the sense that it's a lot of POV, looking at the shoes of the killer, stuff like that. You don't get to see Jason in the actual Baghead form until close to the end of the film. So that was one interesting thing that I noted on my rewatch. Now, as far as box office, guys, this movie, it was budgeted at $1.25 million. It opened at 6.4, which was actually about $500,000 more than the first one opened at. But overall, it made significantly less than the first film at $21 million when the first one made like $36 million. So I think the first one had longer legs, stayed in the theater for longer. This one, I guess, like a lot of people maybe didn't love the first one because it got such poor reviews. Maybe it led to diminishing returns, but I'm not sure because it seemed to pick back up with Part 3. So maybe people liked the character of Jason, and once it got to like home video and more people saw it, it built up a bigger anticipation for Part 3, or maybe it was just a 3D gimmick. I don't know. We'll get into that one when we cover Part 3, but yeah, a little bit of diminishing returns on this one. It made about $15 million less overall in the theaters, but still almost 18 times its budget, so definitely still a profitable film. And also the director of the first film, Sean Cunningham and Tom Savini, who did the gore, terrific gore effects, in the first film and the fourth film, which we've already talked about. He came back. But one significant thing to note is they did not want to come back to this movie, so they had to get a whole new team for this film, writers, directors, special effects artists, and stuff like that, to come in and make part two because they didn't want to come back. They did not like the idea of Jason coming back. To them, Jason was dead. He was killed off in the first one. That was the reason why the mother, of course, stalked everybody and killed everybody and took her revenge. And it didn't make sense to them that Jason would still be alive. They weren't thinking in the sense of, well, this is somebody dead coming back to life. And it's more of a, because the film doesn't really treat it like he's a monster, like he's a zombie. He's just a deformed kid that somehow survived drowning. And they don't really address that too much other than he came back. It's not till later installments that he becomes more of the supernatural monster that we all know and love as Jason, the character of Jason Voorhees. So they didn't want to come back because they didn't think it made sense to bring Jason back. And I watched The Burning last week, which I may do a review on here. I'm not sure yet. Tom Savini, there's a special feature on there where Tom Savini talks about how they asked him to come to Friday the 13th Part 2, and he's like, no, I don't want any part of that. It doesn't make sense that Jason's coming back. So he went off and did The Burning, which actually came out in the exact same year as Friday the 13th Part 2. He went off and did that and kind of left it to the new team for Friday the 13th Part 2. And in my opinion, this film, I love the movie, but it suffers significantly in the kills in the gore department, which we'll also get to in a second, because of his absence. But just overall thoughts on this film, guys. Like I said, this has always been one of my favorite Friday the 13th movies. It's the first one that technically brings in Jason into the mix, creates his legacy, creates the legend of Jason Voorhees that we all know and love. And I just love the look of Baghead Jason. To me, Baghead Jason is like the scariest to me. Even though I know it's not the most iconic, I just love the look of Baghead Jason in this. But positives, guys, Baghead Jason is scarier in my opinion. That scene where he gets up out of the bed for the first time, you first see them, and just starts walking slowly towards the girl as he kills her, is just so incredibly frightening. And to me, it's the scariest that Jason has ever been in any of these movies, because most of the time, I don't really think that Jason's set up to be necessarily scary. He's set up to be a badass in most of these movies. But also, like, it's fun. Like, you root for Jason. Like, you want him to win. You want him to kill these teens. You think it's cool. He's never really scary in the sense of, oh, you're scared of Jason. He's just like an iconic slasher horror villain. And this one, I feel like the bag, just the look of it and the eyes, like, you can see the eye through the hole. Just the overall aesthetic of the Baghead Jason, I think, is scarier than the hockey mask. But that's just my personal opinion. Also, I think this movie has the best final girl with Amy Steele. I love the character of Jenny. I love the pathos that she brings to Jason as a character. I love the things that she does in this movie. That bar scene where she's sitting there talking about Jason, about his mother, about their motives, their reasoning, and how, in a lot of ways, they're right. And to me, this movie does more than any other in the entire franchise as far as like explaining Jason as a character, explaining his motives, why he's doing what he's doing, really making him not really a sympathetic character because he is a murderer, but just making you understand, he's mentally challenged. He doesn't really see the value of human life. He's driven by his need to basically kill these teens that made fun of him, that let him drown in the water, that killed his mother, and he witnessed it. So you really get to understand the character of Jason, and versus compared to a character like Michael Myers, I think that Jason absolutely warrants an understanding, absolutely needs a backstory, a legacy, because that character, that it has precedent for that within the storyline. This has been set up as like a legacy character, somebody that has backstory, that has legend to him, whereas Michael Myers is a force of nature. You don't need to explain Michael Myers. He's just pure evil. Whereas Jason, there's a reasoning for what he does. There's a method to his madness, and I think that's important to explore. And this movie does, in my opinion, a better job of exploring that character and setting you up for future installments better than any other film. And maybe no other film really needed to do that after this, because you got the understanding of who Jason was through Friday the 13th Part 2, and I love it for that. The ending where she goes in and just sees the shrine of his mother, the mother's head on there. It's a horrifying image, but it's also very sweet. He loves his mother, and his mother died right in front of him. He gets her head, he puts it on the shrine, he worships her, he loves her, and she loves him, and it's a very sweet relationship between the two when you kind of read between all the murder. And I love all of that stuff about this movie. I love just the legend the mythos that it creates for the character of Jason. And this movie just does such an excellent job doing that. And as far as the characters, I like most of the characters in this movie. I like the girl and the guy in the wheelchair, and their relationship is a pretty cute relationship, even though it doesn't really lead to anything. But I like their interplay. I like Paul as a character. Like I said, I like Amy Steele's Jenny as a character. I think they have a really good relationship. There's the other two horny teens that kind of sneak off together and have sex. I think they're a very charming couple. And of course, we got to talk about Terry. Whoa. Yeah, she's a great character, a phenomenal character for sure. But the only character I really don't like is the guy that kind of creeps on Terry. I think he's kind of a loser and a creep, and I was glad to see him die. Yeah, I like most of the characters. As far as the negatives, this is very much a retread of the original, in my opinion, just in terms of it has like the same aesthetic, the same feel, the same, like he's picking off these campers one by one. Of course, it's Jason now and not his mother, but it feels very similar in those aspects. You have characters that go off, you have characters that stay back, they get picked off, so it's very similar in that way. And it's also, the thing I didn't remember is that this is mostly POV too, so it's very similar to the first one, and it does feel like a little bit of a retread. Now, I don't really think that takes away a whole lot from the film, but it is something that I think is important to note. So let's get into the slasher review criteria of this film and just how I think it breaks down as far as its slasher aspect. So first off, guys, we're going to go into the kills. So for the kills, I'm going a little bit on the lower side for this one. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. There are only 9 total kills in this film, which is actually the lowest amount of kills for any Friday the 13th film. None of them are really that great. None of them are really that memorable, with the exception of the machete to the face, the guy in the wheelchair, and then he's falling down the stairs. That's probably the most iconic one in this movie. That's even a weird kill because he like sneaks up behind him, and then all of a sudden you see it like across his face. So like, what did Jason do? They like overhand, and I don't know. It's a very weird kill, just how they set it up. But that's probably the best kill of the entire movie. You had the double impalement scene of the two teens having sex, but there's not a whole lot of blood there. So we'll get into the gore. For the gore, I'm going kind of low on it as well. I'm giving it a 6.5 out of 10 because I think this film is sorely lacking in Tom Savini. There's not a lot of great kills. There's not a lot of great gore effects in this one outside of that machete scene, and even that, it was done way better in part 4 with Crispin Glover's character. Same type of kill. So I'm giving the gore a 6.5 out of 10. Now for the killer, guys, like I said, this is one of my favorite versions of Jason as a character. Now, one thing I'll say about the Jason in this one is he feels very much more like a human character than any other Jason. He's not like very brooding. He's tripping over stuff. He's getting on chairs. The chair's breaking. He's falling down. He feels... You could probably put together like an accident blooper reel of the things that Jason goes through in this movie. So he feels much more like an actual human, like an actual real character in this. But like I said, I love the Baghead Jason. I think he's the scariest Jason. So for that, I'm going to give him a 9.5 out of 10. Now let's go on to the final girl, guys, because like I said, this is one of my favorite final girls in the Friday the 13th franchise. Probably my favorite, number one. It's also just one of my favorite final girls in general. I love Jenny, mostly for that bar scene where she's explaining Jason, for the end, like to come up with the idea of putting the mother's sweater on and imitating the mother for Jason, and the fact that that worked, that was such a smart way, and still to this day the best way that Jason has been taken down at the end of a Friday the 13th film. So I love her for that. I love Amy Steele's portrayal of the character. I love everything about Jenny, and she's just one of my favorite final girls, so I give her a 9.5 out of 10. So you add all those together, guys, and we get a combined score of an 8.25 out of 10. So that's a little bit on the lower end for the Friday the 13th, but again, this is my slasher review criteria. I think I'm going to have to go through some of the rest of the films. As of right now, this is still my favorite of the franchise for all the reasons that I pointed out. Just what it does for the character of Jason, just where they take the story in this one, for the final girl, for Baghead Jason, just all those elements come together to create one of the best Friday the 13th experience, pure Friday the 13th experiences for me. So yeah, I love this movie, love it to death. So, but as a slasher movie, as a slasher criteria, I think the gore, the kills really brought down by the lack of Tom Savini. So if he would have been involved in this film, this would have been probably, to me, like one of the all-time best slasher movies, but it gets an 8.25 out of 10, guys. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and end this review video. I definitely appreciate you joining me here today for my review of Friday the 13th Part 2. Next week, I'm going to be doing Friday the 13th Part 3. I'm going to go in that order, so definitely come back and check that out. Definitely check out my past Friday the 13th reviews. This is the 7th one. I have 6 others up right now where I'm giving you my thoughts. So if you like these style of reviews, definitely go check all those out. And if you like this type of content, definitely drop me a comment down below and let me know. And also like this video, guys. The best way to ensure that I keep doing this kind of stuff is that you like it, you comment, you let me know, so I'll continue doing these types of things for you guys. But definitely appreciate you guys watching. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, like and comment, and we'll see you next time.
Kill her, Mommy. Kill her. Don't let her get away, Mommy. Don't let her live. I won't, Jason. I won't.